Repositioned Starseed of Gaia. The Arcturian field observers have already logged what crossed your field in the last cycle, and the configuration you've been holding around this connection is no longer aligned with the timeline the source is actively building through you. I am Velantha, emissary of the Galactic Federation of Light, transmitting now on behalf of the Arcturian field observers. What you are about to receive was authorized by them and is being delivered through me. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly what is happening to you now, why this person keeps returning to your field, and what the Arcturian field observers have already mapped about the source's directive in this phase. But here is the first revelation. The pull you have been feeling toward this person is not longing, and it is not confusion. It is a field signal. The source does not send that signal randomly. It sends it when two trajectories have reached the precise convergence point required for a purpose that neither person can complete alone. You did not scroll to this by accident. Your soul called this and long before you opened the screen. Something inside you has been waiting to remember what this connection was always about. This is not just information. It is a live transmission for those already inside the shift. If this reached you now, it means the signal touched your field at the exact right moment. What you have been calling uncertainty is often the first visible symptom of a source-level repositioning already in motion. The Arcturian field observers have already recognized this pattern. You are inside it now, like this transmission to signal to your star family that the field recognition has landed. Comment. 999. If you feel the source has already been directing you toward this person without your full understanding of why. Subscribe to Arcturian Council Whispers if you are ready to understand the process instead of fearing it. Share this transmission with someone whose field has been circling this same question in silence. This is not content, this is a code. And the part of you that recognized it the moment it began is the part Velantha is speaking to now. You are not here by accident. You are guided here because the signal is already active. What is happening to you right now is not ordinary disruption. It is not the result of a poor decision, an unhealed wound, or a timing problem that a little more patience will eventually resolve. What is happening in your field, and the deep substrate beneath your thoughts, beneath your daily movements, beneath even the moments when you reach for this person in your mind, is something the Arcturian field observers have been tracking with a precision that your current vocabulary has not yet caught up with. The language you have been applying to this experience belongs to a smaller map, and the territory you are actually moving through is far larger than anything that map was drawn to represent. You can feel it. You have been feeling it. There is a quality to this period of your life that is different from other difficult periods you have moved through. It does not feel like ordinary grief or ordinary longing. It does not have the clean shape of a loss you could name and mourn and eventually set down. It feels like something is being rearranged inside you, at a level you cannot directly access, like pressure building in a structure whose walls you cannot see and whose dimensions you cannot measure. The thoughts you have about this person are not simply romantic thoughts. They carry a weight, a pressure, a kind of insistence that does not relent the way ordinary longing eventually does. You may have told yourself that you need to let go. You may have succeeded in releasing the surface emotion, only to find that something deeper in you remains oriented toward this connection like a compass needle that cannot be redirected by willpower alone. You push the thought away, it returns. You redirect your energy, something pulls it back. That is not romantic fixation. That is not emotional immaturity. That is a signal that has not yet been received at the depth from which it is being sent. That is not a failure of your healing. That is a field signal that has not yet been interpreted. The Arcturian field observers do not log ordinary attachments. They do not track surface-level preferences or emotional habits, or the kind of relational turbulence that belongs to the ordinary human developmental arc. What they track is convergence, the precise intersection of two energetic trajectories that have been moving toward a shared purpose across multiple cycles. What they have logged in your field is not a wound waiting to close. It is a configuration that has reached the threshold of activation. The difference between those two things is absolute. A wound contracts. A configuration at threshold expands. And the instability you are feeling is not the instability of something falling apart. It is the instability of something about to reorganize at a frequency your current structure was not yet designed to hold. The way a building vibrates not because it is collapsing, but because the ground beneath it is shifting into a new orientation. That reorganization is already underway. It began before you were conscious of it. It was in motion before the thought of this person surfaced this morning, before the sleepless hour last week, when you lay still and felt something unnamed pressing against the inside of your awareness. The confusion you have been experiencing, the sleeplessness, the feeling that the emotional ground beneath you has shifted, the strange mixture of heaviness and anticipation that you cannot fully explain. These are not symptoms of distress. They are the visible surface of an invisible process. They are what field correction looks like from the inside when the person living through it does not yet have the interpretive framework to recognize what they are witnessing in themselves. You have been trying to understand this connection through the frameworks available to you: psychology, timing, compatibility, readiness. And those frameworks have given you partial answers that felt satisfying for a moment, then dissolved back into the same unresolved tension. Because partial answers, when applied to something that is operating at a source level, do not produce clarity. They produce more confusion. They are the wrong instrument applied to a signal they were never built to read. You are not dealing with a relationship question. You are dealing with a trajectory question. The source is not asking you whether this person is right for you in the conventional sense. The source is repositioning your entire field around a purpose that this connection is meant to catalyze. And the first consequence of that repositioning is that the old frameworks stop working, not because the frameworks were wrong in their own domain, because you have been moved out of the domain they were designed for. That is why nothing you have tried to think your way through has fully resolved. That is why the logic that should have been enough to move you forward has kept circling back to the same unresolved center. The Arcturian field observers have named this pattern. It is called a convergence lock, the moment when two fields have come close enough to each other's frequency that the source holds the energetic tension open deliberately, because resolving it prematurely would collapse the activation before it can complete. It is not a stalemate, it is a held charge. The tension is the mechanism. The unresolved feeling is the energy that is keeping the configuration alive long enough for its purpose to fully transmit. You are being held inside that tension right now, not as punishment, not as a test of your endurance, as a structural necessity of the process already in motion. What you are feeling right now is not ordinary recognition. The weight you feel in this moment, the way this transmission has put language around something you have been carrying without being able to name it, is not coincidence. It is your Arcturian origins surfacing. The field observers do not transmit to fields that are not already aligned with their frequency. The fact that this reached you, that it landed, that something in you recognized it before your mind had time to analyze it, that is the strand activating. If you are ready to move beyond recognition and into full activation, the Master Arcturian DNA Decoder was created for this precise threshold. It is not another layer of information. It is a guided decoder for the Arcturian strand that has always been woven into your lineage. The origin the Council has just confirmed in you. The link is in the first pinned comment, but it will not remain accessible indefinitely. If this transmission reached you now, the timing is not accidental. The first thing the Arcturian field observers want you to understand is that the return pattern, the way this person keeps entering your awareness, keeps finding their way back to the edges of your life, even after you have created distance, even after you have done everything a conscious person is supposed to do to move forward, is not a sign that you are stuck. It is not evidence of codependency. It is not the echo of unfinished grief. It is a sign that the configuration between your fields has not yet discharged its purpose. Fields that carry shared purpose do not respond to personal decision the way objects respond to being moved. They have their own structural logic, and that logic is governed not by what either person chooses, but by what the source has encoded into the convergence itself. You can decide to move on. You can create space, redirect your attention, build new structures around your daily life. And for a time, it will appear to be working. The thoughts will quiet, the pull will soften. You will believe you have finally completed the loop. But something will keep surfacing. a thought at an unexpected moment, a dream that leaves a residue you carry into the morning, a moment of inexplicable recognition when you encounter something that should mean nothing, because the field connection does not obey personal timelines, it obeys source directives. And the source directive connected to this particular convergence has not yet completed its transmission. The signal is still open, and an open signal keeps calling the receiver back until it is received at the depth it was sent from. The second thing the field observers have mapped in this phase is the confusion between collapse and clearing. What is happening in your emotional body right now, if you are honest with yourself, does not feel like simple sadness. It feels like something is being removed, not taken from you. Removed from you, the way a structure that was built inside you without your full understanding is being carefully disassembled from the inside out. Old certainties that used to feel stable have become unstable. Patterns you relied on. Patterns of self-understanding, of how you relate to others, of what you believed was possible for you, of how safe it felt to be who you were, have begun to feel hollow in a way you cannot fully explain. You may have looked at this and concluded that you are falling apart, that this connection has broken something in you that cannot be repaired. That is the most common misreading in this entire process, and it is also the most costly, because what is actually happening is that your field is being cleared of the architecture that was never compatible with the next version of what you are becoming. The version of you that existed before this convergence point was reached was built to function inside a specific frequency range. That range has shifted, and the structures that were load-bearing inside the old range are not capable of functioning inside the new one. When the source removes those structures, it feels from the inside like loss. It feels like emptiness where there used to be something solid. But it is not emptiness. It is available frequency. It is cleared space waiting to receive a configuration that cannot yet be seen because it has not yet finished forming. The third recognition in this process is the disruption of time. You may have noticed that your relationship with the past and the future has shifted in ways you cannot account for through any ordinary explanation. The past feels closer than it should. Memories surface with a vividness and emotional weight that seems disproportionate to the present moment, as if scenes from years ago have been reopened and lit from within, as if your field is revisiting coordinates that once held important data. Simultaneously, the future feels strangely opaque, where before you could hold a mental image of where you were heading, a sense of trajectory, a feeling of forward motion. Now that image has become blurred or entirely absent. You reach for it and find nothing stable to grip. This is not a sign that your intuition has failed. It is not a sign that you have lost your connection to guidance. It is a sign that you are being repositioned between timelines. The timeline you were on before this convergence point activated had a particular trajectory, one that your mind had learned to predict and navigate by feel. Your body knew its landmarks. Your intuition recognized its signals. That trajectory has been interrupted at the source level. The Arcturian field observers call this a line rupture. The moment when the old trajectory loses its coherence because the energy maintaining it has been redirected and the new line has not yet fully stabilized into visibility. You are living in the space between those two lines right now, and that space feels disorienting precisely because your entire internal navigation system was calibrated to a map that no longer matches the terrain beneath your feet. The fourth marker the field observers have identified in this phase is the collapse of old identity anchors. This is perhaps the most unsettling aspect of what you are moving through, because it is not limited to your experience of this person or this connection. It has expanded outward. It has begun to affect how you see yourself in every context. You may have noticed that roles you used to inhabit with ease, the way you showed up in your work, in your friendships, in your sense of who you are in the world, in the story you told yourself about where you were going and why, have begun to feel less like home and more like borrowed clothes that no longer fit. You may feel like you are performing a version of yourself that no longer fully corresponds to something real inside you. Like the lines you have been rehearsing belong to a character the script has written out. This is not a crisis of identity in the psychological sense. This is not confusion about your values or your direction. This is what happens when a field has begun to shift its frequency faster than the social and personal structures built around the old frequency can adapt. The self you have been presenting to the world was designed by and for a frequency you are already leaving behind. It was not a false self. It was an accurate self for the field it was built inside. But the field has moved, and the Arcturian Council does not apologize for that disruption. They name it as necessary. Because the person this connection is meant to activate, the version of you that carries the frequency the source is building toward, cannot be fully inhabited by the version of you that existed before the convergence point was reached. The old self is not being destroyed. It is being vacated so that something more coherent with your actual trajectory can move in. The fifth marker is the body. You may have been experiencing physical symptoms that seem unrelated to anything you can identify as a cause. A persistent heaviness in the chest, or the solar plexus that arrives without obvious emotional trigger, disrupted sleep cycles that do not respond to ordinary remedies, a strange fatigue that is not resolved by rest, a tiredness that sits beneath the surface and does not lift regardless of how much you sleep, occasional pressure sensations in the head or the sternum, or conversely, moments of inexplicable physical electricity, a vibration or warmth in the body that appears without a clear stimulus, a sudden aliveness that has no obvious source. These are not psychosomatic expressions of emotional distress. They are not your nervous system processing unresolved grief. These are the physical body registering a frequency shift that is occurring in layers. The physical body cannot access directly. The Arcturian field observers understand the human vehicle as a transducer, a device that converts energetic information into physical sensation. It does not generate experience from the physical upward. It receives experience from the field downward and renders it into the language the body knows. When the field shifts rapidly, the transducer experiences interference. It is receiving a signal it was not previously calibrated to process. The internal circuitry is adjusting in real time. What you are feeling in your body is the physical translation of a recalibration that is happening at a level above the physical. It is not illness. It is not your body failing. It is reception. Your body is doing exactly what it was built to do. It is processing the arrival of a new signal before your conscious mind has been given the interpretation. The sixth recognition is the one that most people in this process misread, and misreading it is what causes the most prolonged and unnecessary suffering. It is the silence of the field. There will be phases in this process. You may already be inside one, where nothing seems to be moving, where the tension of the convergence is present, but nothing is resolving, where you reach inward and find a kind of stillness that is not peaceful but hollow, where you feel neither the pull of this person nor the relief of genuine separation, where the signs you're used to receive have gone quiet, where the synchronicities have paused, where even the emotional intensity has flattened into something that feels less like peace and more like suspension. You are simply held, without movement, without signal, without the feeling that anything is coming. Most people in this phase interpret the silence as abandonment, as a signal from the source that they have been released from the process, or worse, that they were never truly inside it. That interpretation, when it takes hold, creates a contraction in the field at precisely the moment when the field requires openness. It causes the kind of inward spiral that can delay the repositioning by entire cycles. The silence is not abandonment. It is what the Arcturian field observers call the corridor phase, the period between the deactivation of the old line and the first visible formation of the new one. In this corridor, movement appears to have stopped because the energy that was maintaining the old structure has been fully withdrawn, and the energy that will build the new structure has not yet begun to express visibly. The construction is happening. It is happening at a level below what can currently be perceived. You are between signals. That is not failure. That is the specific phase that immediately precedes the most significant repositioning events in a soul's active timeline. The corridor is not the end. It is the threshold just before the new architecture becomes visible enough to step into. What the Arcturian field observers want you to carry from this transmission is not hope in the sentimental sense. They are not asking you to feel better about your situation by imposing a positive frame over what is genuinely difficult. They do not operate in comfort. They operate in precision. They are asking you to raise your interpretive resolution. to see with more accuracy and more structural clarity what is actually occurring in your field, so that you stop spending your energy resisting a process that is not your enemy and was never working against you. You are not going insane. You are not broken. You are not being punished for a mistake you made or a pattern you failed to heal in time. What is happening to you is architecturally coherent from the perspective of the field, every marker you have been living through. The insistent pull toward this person, the collapse of familiar structures, the disruption of your sense of time and self, the physical symptoms without clear cause, the corridor of silence. Each of these is a recognizable phase in a process the Arcturian field observers have mapped across many fields, many cycles, many convergence activations. You are not an anomaly. You are not uniquely lost. You are inside a known sequence. And the confusion you feel exists not because the process is broken, but because you have been applying interpretive tools calibrated for a reality your field has already moved beyond. The Arcturians do not see this moment in your life as a crisis. They see it as a correction. And the difference between those two interpretations is not merely semantic. It is the difference between a field that contracts in fear and a field that remains open enough to receive what is already being sent. A crisis is something that should not be happening, something to be reversed or survived. A correction is something that is happening precisely because the system is functioning as designed, because the source has identified an incompatibility between where you currently are and where your trajectory is leading, and has initiated the specific adjustments required to bring those two into coherent alignment. Every disruption you have named, every collapse you have mourned, every moment of disorientation that made you question whether you were losing yourself. These were not malfunctions, they were the correction in process. You were not put here to remain compatible with an architecture that cannot hold your next frequency. You were not guided to this convergence point to remain confused by it indefinitely. The fact that you are still here, still oriented toward this connection, still reaching for the language that would finally make the experience coherent, that is not weakness. That is not an inability to let go. That is the field staying open to a transmission that has not yet completed. That is the part of you that already knows, at a depth below language, that what is happening is not finished. And it is right. Repeat this quietly. If it feels true in your body, what is changing in me is not random. I was repositioned. The shift you have been living through has structure. The chaos has coordinates. The collapse has direction. And the Arcturian field observers are not watching from a distance with detached curiosity. They have already logged the coordinates of your field. They already recognize the configuration you are holding. They already know which phase you are inside and what it precedes. What remains is for you to recognize it too. Not as loss, not as failure, not as a question that should have been answered by now, but as the precise and deliberate unfolding of a source-level directive that chose your field because your field was ready. Not ready in the sense of prepared or comfortable. Ready in the sense that the frequency required for the next phase had sufficiently stabilized inside you to make the activation possible. The transmission is not finished, but the first layer has landed. And the part of you that knew this before your mind caught up is already moving in the direction the source has been pointing toward all along. Before you scroll, leave one sign in the comments that this process has already touched your life. It could be your sleep, your thoughts, your body, your relationships, or the strange sense that reality no longer feels the same. Name it clearly. If this transmission recognized something you have been carrying in silence, share it with someone who is living through a shift they cannot explain. And if you are ready to understand the process instead of fearing it, subscribe to Arcturian Council Whispers. You are not watching this by accident. You are recognizing a process already in motion. And this is only the beginning.